So this video is integrated 3 D-Day number 3 for chapter 9. So on this first problem, again, when we're doing this, what you want to remember is that 180 degrees is the same as pi. So if I write pi over 180 degrees, that's really just a fancy 1. Or if I write 180 degrees over pi, that also is just a fancy 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 330 degrees. I'm going to multiply it by this one here because I want to have my degrees cancel. So I want my degrees in the denominator. And so my degree cancels. I'm going to cancel a 10. So I end up with 33 pi over 18, which I believe I can reduce again. 3 goes into this 11 times, 3 goes into this 6 times. So I get 11 pi 6 as my answer. You can also think about where 330 degrees is on the unit circle. So if I'm just looking at this unit circle below, 330 degrees is right here. And yes, that is 11 pi 6. So when I'm doing 7 pi 6, trying to convert it, if I'm using, again, the big 1, this time I want to do it with pi 180 over pi so that I get my pi's to cancel out. So when I do that, the pi's cancel out. And actually 6 goes into 180 30 times. So I get 30 degrees. So I'm going to end up with 210 degrees. And again, if you're looking at the unit circle, just using this as a reference, 210 degrees is here on my unit circle, which is the same as 7 pi 6. On number 3. So on this one, I'm going sine, I'm going backwards. So negative sine 4 pi thirds. So my pi thirds are these ones here. So that's where I'm going to be. And that value is going to be negative 1/2 comma root 3/2. And I want sine. Sine is our y coordinate. So that's going to be my answer. Root 3 over 2. That's what it is equal to. On B, I want 5 pi fourths. So as I'm going around my unit circle, around 5 pi fourths is going to be right there. So I am here. And this is going to be negative root 2 halves, comma, negative root 2 halves. Secant is the reciprocal of secant is cosine. So I'm going to be looking at my cosine. And so my cosine is going to be my y. And so it's going to be the reciprocal of this. So I am going to have the reciprocal of this, which is going to be negative 2 over root 2. I'm going to rationalize it. And I'm going to get negative 2 root 2 over 2, which cleans up to negative root 2. Sorry, negative root 2. And that's going to be my answer. Kind of clean this up. Okay, so that's going to be a negative root 2. There, that looks a little better. Okay, so now on cosine of 17 pi thirds. First off, I want to figure out where 17 pi thirds is on the unit circle. So I'm going to take 3 into 17, which goes 5 times, which I will have 2 left over. So I'm going to go to 5 and 2 thirds. So my odd pi's are over here. And so what's going to happen is from there, I'm going to go 2/3 pi, which is going to be here. This is where I'm going to be. And so this is a positive 1/2 comma negative root 3/2. I want my cosine. So my answer is 1/2. That's my answer. On the next section, for these ones, what we want to do is we want to figure out the possibly two angles. So positive cosine, my cosine is positive in these two quadrants. And my cosine is my x. So I'm looking for long comma short. So I'm going to be here and here. So that's going to be pi 6 is one answer, and 11 pi 6 is my second. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So if I want my sine to be undefined, okay, my sine is undefined. I'm sorry, my cosecant is undefined when my sine is equal to 0. So my sine is going to be 0. And so my sine is 0 here at 0 and here at pi. And those are going to be my answers. Tangent. My tangent is positive in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. And let me just kind of do my marks since I didn't put one here for us. Okay. And so my tangent is y over x. So I want to decide, do I want root 3/2 over 1/2? Or do I want 1/2 over root 3/2? If I'm dealing with the first one, that is actually going to be root 3/2. Let's start again here. That is going to be root 3/2 times the reciprocal of 1/2, which is 2. And so that's going to be the one I want. So I basically want my y to be root 3/2. So that is going to be short comma long, which is going to be pi 3rds. And over here, which is going to be 4 pi 3rds. Those are going to be my two answers. So on the graph here, this is going to be, my amplitude is a 5. My vertical shift is going to be a positive 2. We're going to go up 2. My period is going to be 2 pi over 4, which is a pi halves. And my phase shift is pi 6. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my phase shift and add the period on. It's because what's happening is I'm going to start at pi 3rds. I'm going to go pi halves away. And so when I do that, I'm going to have basically 2 pi 6 plus 3 pi 6, which means I'm going to end at 5 pi 6. So again, this is my start. Trying for a highlighter. This is my start. This is my period. That's how long the cycle is. And I'm going to end at 5 pi 6. So for my graph, let me get something not green. For my graph, I'm going to be up at 2. I'm going to go 5 above that, which is going to put me up at 7. I'm going to go 5 below that, which is going to put me at -3. This is my vertical shift. This is my low and high. Now, I saw that we are going to start at pi thirds. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to end at 5 pi 6. And then when I'm doing this graph, since this is sine, it starts at my 0, ends at my 0. Halfway in between is a 0. Because it's negative, I'm going to go down first, then up. And there's my sine. For my cosine, my amplitude is 3. My vertical shift is a -1. And my period is going to be 2 pi divided by the 4, which is pi halves. And I have to be careful trying to figure out my vertical shift. I want to actually take 4x minus pi halves and set that equal to 0 and solve. So I have 4x is equal to a positive pi halves. So I'm going to get x is equal to pi eighths. That's where we're going to start. So we're going to start at pi eighths. We're going to go pi halves away. And pi halves is really 4 pi eighths. So I'm going to end up at 5 pi eighths when I do that math. So dropping it down to -1, going 3 above, which puts me up at 2, and 3 below, which puts me down at -4. And I've got my first mark is at pi eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to end at 5 pi eighths. So this is my vertical shift, my high and low. And for our graph, this is a cosine, a positive cosine. So I'm going to start at a high, end at a high. Halfway in between's a low, then I've got my zeros. And there's my graph. So on this one, they want us to do sine and cosine. So they gave us some values. For the sine is always starting in the middle. So this is going to be the middle of my graph. This is my high, this is my low. So my vertical shift is going to be having a K being 2. I'm going to be starting my sine at this point. And my amplitude is going to be 3. And I need to figure out my period. Now, sometimes it's easier to figure out your period maybe with your cosine and your sine or vice versa. So I'm going to draw in here real quick. If I start here to here, that would be my cosine. The period of my cosine is going to be the same as the period of my sine. So I'm going from 0 to pi, 0 to pi. So my period is going to be pi. Now, if my period is pi, I know that 2 pi over b is equal to my period. And since my period is pi, that means my b, if I do that math, is going to be 2. And then I'm going to start here at pi fourths. So my sine is going to be y is equal to, and I'm going up first as a +3. sine. My b is a 2. I'm starting at pi 4, so this is going to be x minus pi 4, and then plus 2. Now, my cosine graph is the one I actually sketched out here. That's going to start at 0, okay? So this is going to be y is equal to, and this is a negative cosine. So it's going to be a negative 3 cosine, still 2. Now, this is going to be just 2x because I'm starting at on my y-axis, and then plus 2. On number 7, so in this situation, on number 7, we have high tide occurs at 10 a.m. A low tide occurs at 10 p.m. The the maximum level of water is 3.1 meters. Let me grab a highlighter, that would be helpful. So we got 3.1 meters, and the lowest level is 0.3. Assume that the time that t equals 0 is at 10 a.m. So in this situation, we're going to have the highest water level is going to be 3.5. The lowest water level is going to be 0.3. And then we need to figure out halfway in between. So to do that, I'm going to add 0.3 plus 3.1 plus 0.3 divided by 2. So I'm going to end up with 3.4 divided by 2, which is going to be a 1.7. So this is going to be a 1.7. And then I'm going to have 0. And then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first mark is 10 a.m. and that is our high, and our high is occurring. Let me just sketch this out. So this is my middle, my low and high. And my high is at a 0, which is 3.1. And it's going to end here. Halfway in between is here. Okay, this is going to be our graph. Now I need to give some values to the x-axis. Again, this is 0, but that's 10 a.m. Okay. And then here, this is going to be 12 hours later, but that's going to be 10 p.m. And then this is going to be 24 hours later, and this is going to be 10 a.m. again. So for this graph, this is going to be y is equal to, the distance from here to here is going to be 1.4. So it's going to be 1.4. I'm going to do it as a cosine. Our period is 24 hours. So I'm going to go 2 pi divided by e equals 24 hours. So 2 pi over 24 equals b, which means this is going to be pi over 12 times x plus 1.7. And that's going to be our equation. On 36, we want to get them to be the same base. So a 36 is going to be a 6 squared raised to the power of 5x minus 7. 5x minus 7 is equal to 1/6 is 6 to the negative first. So basically my exponent 2 times 5x minus 7 is going to equal -1. So I get a 10x minus 14 is equal to a -1. 10x equals 13. So x is equal to 13 over 10 or 1.3. And that's our answer. On letter B, I want to get this to be a single logarithm. So it's going to be log base 2 of x squared minus 6x. Those multiply together is equal to 4. Then I'm going to rewrite it in exponential form. 2 to the power 4 is equal to x squared minus 6x. So 16 is equal to x squared minus 6x. So when I do this, I'm going to get 0 is equal to x squared minus 6x minus 16. And I can factor, so this is going to be an x minus 8, x plus 2. So x equals 8, x equals -2. Now, we always need to check our answers with our logs to make sure that when we put it into the original problem, we're not taking log of 0 or a negative. And the one that's not going to work is x equal -2. So my answer is x equal 8. Okay, on the next one, number 9, we're going to do P over Q. My P's are factors of 21, so that's a positive -1, positive -3, positive -7, positive -21. Over my Q, which is 1. It is a degree 4, so I should be getting 4 solutions. So I have 1, 2, 4, positive 14, and a -21. So let's say I start with a 1. Bring down my 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Add it, I get 3. 3 times 1 is 3. Add it, I get 4. 4 times 1 is 4. I add it, I get 18. 18 times 1 is 18. I add it, I get -16. Let's say I try 3. 3 times 1 is 3. I add it to 2, I get 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Sorry, I add it to 4, I get 19. 19 times 3 is 57. Okay, I see this is not going to be doing it. So I'll just finish it off. 57 times 3 is a 171 minus 21 is a 150. So when you see that we get all positive numbers here, I don't need to try the 7 and the 21. They're not going to work because that's an upper bound. So I need to go the other direction. So let's say I try -1. Bring down my 1. 1 times -1 is -1. Add it to 2, 1. 1 times -1 is -1. Add it to 4, 3. 3 times -1 is -1. Add it to 14. I get an 11. 11 times -1 is -11. I add it to -21. I get -32. So let me try -3. -3 times 1 is -3. I add it to 2. I get a -1. -3 times -1 is 3. I add it to 4. I get 12. -3 times 12 is a -36. And that's going to give me a negative, let's see what I was doing. I had a -36. So I get a -22. And I have a 66, so I get a 34. Okay, so that's alternate interior, so that's alternating signs. So let's see, did I miss something? Let me just double check my numbers here. So I was looking over this because at this point, when I'm using this +3 and I get all positives back, that means I don't need to try any number higher than 3. So 7 and 21 are not going to work. So I went the other direction. When I was using my -3, I got alternating signs. That means I don't need to try anything in front of -3. So -7, -21. So then I'm like, wait, something's wrong. And I went back and I was looking at this situation right here. And I did make a mistake here. So let me redo my math. I'll do it next to it. So we had a 1, a 2, a 4, a 14, and a -21. Okay, so I bring down my 1. And this is where I started to make my mistake. 1 times 1 is 1. I add it to 2, I get 3. 3 times 1 is 3, but I add it to 4 and I get 7. 7 times 1 is 7. I add it to 14. I get 21. 21 times 1 is 21. I added, I get 0. So I did end up getting a 0 here. So 1, 3, 7, 21 is going to be what I have left. And now I'm going to try synthetic division again with this and see what I get. So when I have a situation like this and I'm doing synthetic division with this now degree 3 polynomial here, and I see that all these are positive, I know that using positives are not going to work. So I need to use my negatives. Now, if something didn't work before, it's not going to work again. But I'm obviously tired while I'm doing this. And I noticed that here I made a mistake also. That when I was doing -1 times -3 is 3, I added it to 4, which should have been 7. So that was a mistake right there. So that should have been a 7. And then that was a -21. And when I add that -21 with 14, I'm going to get a -7. And when I add that, multiply that -7 with the -3, I get a +21. And when I add it with my -21 at the top, I get a 0. So again, if something didn't work before, it's not going to work again. But I did make a mistake here with the -3. So I'm going to try -3 over here, and it will work. Bring down my 1. 1 times -3 is -3. I add it to 3, 0. 0 times -3 is 0. Add it to 7, 7. 7 times -3 is -21. I add it to 21, 0. So at this point, I have 2 answers. One answer is x equal 1. One answer is x equal -3. Now I have from here x squared plus 7, because I have no x, is equal to 0. I solve that. So that's going to be x squared is equal to -7, which means my other 2 answers are going to be plus or minus, and I'm going to take the square of a negative, which means I'm going to get an I root 7. So let me write them up here. The other 2 are going to be plus or minus I root 7. And that's the end. And I apologize for making 2 mistakes on number 9. But it kind of helps me also show you that when you're going through this and you notice that you're doing a positive and everything here is positive, then any number after that, which I only had 2, a 7 and a 21, aren't going to work. So then I went and started doing my negatives. And then when I tried my -3, I got alternating signs. And I'm like, wait, that means that's a lower bound. But that means I can't try my -7 and my -21. So I figured something was up. And so when I double checked my math, I realized I just messed up with my arithmetic. That's the end of this video. And hopefully you guys do not make the same mistakes that I did on that problem.